The way we work is changing dramatically, and the workforce is changing with it. Companies are under a lot of pressure to reduce costs, and that's converging with workers actually wanting a lot more flexibility. There's also an increase in the use of technology. Things such as robotics and AI, it's actually given rise to the gig economy.
This shift creates many tax issues, regulatory issues, immigration issues for both the countries and the businesses. Right now, global tax systems are really following a traditional model. They're for the most part, outdated. They presume that every person is an employee that works for the company, sitting in a single jurisdiction, and really immobile. Gig workers can greatly complicate cross-border tax issues such as permanent establishment, transfer pricing issues, among many more. For example, how do you track costs when a contingent worker who lives in one country electronically provides services on behalf of a company in a different jurisdiction for a client located in a third jurisdiction? Now, what if the contingent worker is traveling to different countries when offering these services?
And a lot of companies think that they can avoid that permanent establishment or PE issue by actually having contingent workers do the work in whatever country that they're looking to have a foothold in. That is not necessarily the case. You can actually trigger permanent establishment with contingent workers. So for instance, India is one of those countries. If I wanted to have a foothold or some type of footprint in India and I brought that up with contingent workers, I would most likely have a permanent establishment issue.
The UK, in their own mind and their own calculations, they believe that if they were to tax all the workers correctly, it would pull another 700 million into their tax coffers. That's a big number. It's something they're going to go after, and they're going to look deeply into it. Companies are going to have to get their arms around this and get their arms around this quickly. There's a tracking issue that has to come along with this, and who's responsible for finding out how much is going to be paid and when those taxes are paid. Countries are putting a lot more pressure on the company to actually do the assessment.
You would think a company in this day and age, they would have all the systems in place, they would have all the documentation in place and be able to know where these contingent workers are, know how many they have. That is definitely not the case.
We're working with a client that uses 1,000 contractors in a jurisdiction. These workers aren't employees under current rules. However, the rules are changing, and they're changing quickly. If the workers were all to be considered employees, the company estimates possible withholding tax liabilities of up to equivalent of $70 million a year. We're helping the company analyze which of these gig workers would be considered employees under evolving rules, and we're also working with the tax authorities to develop a common understanding of how to classify these workers. We're helping the company to develop a process that will remain robust and compliant as the rules continue to change.
By the year 2020, we estimate that about 1 in 5 contingent workers will be available or actually in use in any different employee-employer population. And by the year 2030, about half of the workforce, half of the supply of talent will actually be giggers.
In the future, companies will have a talent puzzle of permanent workers, contingent workers, mobile workers, and automation. The future will also require new tax models to really address this new way of work. This is the future of tax.
And the future of work.